Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Griffin Report podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Della Penna, back here on Zoom with another very important guest for episode 9. She is a very distinguished Canisius alum. The class of 2003 was in the women's basketball program, was most recently just named a 2022 Most Powerful Woman in Sports by Adweek, and now is the current CEO of the New York Liberty, Mrs. Keia Clarke. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Griffin. Really excited. First time I've been interviewed by someone named Griffin.
Well, there we go. So yeah, I'll give you the quick rundown. My parents actually both went to Canisius. My dad played football back in the early 90s. So that's how I got my name, was in honor of where they met. And then it was just kind of destiny for me to come here. So yeah, I get that asked a lot. So I just thought I'd put it out there now.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Good for you and your parents.
Yeah. So we'll get right into it, just starting from your upbringing in Connecticut. When did your love of sports, specifically basketball, originally begin?
Yeah, interestingly, both of my parents actually played basketball growing up and also both in college. So probably around the time I was 8 years old, I started playing in the neighborhood, just with friends, just for fun. And my mom actually asked me if I wanted to go to basketball camp summer after I turned 9 years old. And I said, nah, I just play basketball for fun. By about 10 and a half, I was begging with everything in me to go to every clinic and every camp in, pretty much every waking hour, especially in the summertime. I just fell in love with the game and really continued to play and started to play organized basketball in middle school. I did attend the same high school as my mom, where she actually was a point guard a couple decades before I did, and then ultimately got the opportunity of a lifetime to become a Golden Griffin.
Yeah, that's really cool. And we'll go back to your time at Platt High School. So you were a 3-sport athlete there, playing basketball, of course, volleyball and softball. What made you want to go the path of basketball and play that collegiately?
Yeah, I picked up volleyball kind of as a late bloomer. Truth be told, I love that game probably as much as I love basketball, but basketball just had been in my DNA, literally and figuratively, for so long. And most importantly, I had gone down the track of playing AAU during my final year in high school, or final 2 years in high school. So really it was a no-brainer to be able to play the game that I had played for the longest, the game that I loved, the game that meant so much to my family. It was really easy. Not many schools recruited me for volleyball. I'm 5'6". I'm sure you saw the roster from way back in the day, which is tough when you're an outside hitter. And I absolutely positively played softball, truthfully, just for fun. I was quick and I could steal bases, but I couldn't hit the ball to save my life, or there was no shot of me being a collegiate softball player.
Yeah, still very important positions. And if you were a 5'6" outside hitter, you must have been jumping out of the gym. So that credit to you for that. But throughout the recruiting process for basketball, when you're trying to make it to the next level, head coach Mike DeSillis and Canisius is where you ended up going. But what made them kind of stick out in the rest of the pack?
Yeah, it's actually Mike, wonderful coach, was so happy to play for him for all of my 4 years at Canisius. But ironically, it was his then first assistant, Michelle Collins, who was recruiting me actually before Mike got the job. Michelle had gone to Siena and we had several great conversations. I had an amazing official visit. I met just wonderful people, the girls who were on the team at the time. I visited probably 6 or 7 schools. I went to 2 or 3 official visits, 3 or 4 unofficial visits, but Buffalo actually felt like the right place for me. Where I'm from is not super diverse, and the diversity of Buffalo really made me feel right at home. And the close-knit, really, the size of Canisius felt right for me, coming from a small town. I still kind of got that big city but smaller community feel. Dare I say, and I don't talk about this often. I wear a lot of seafoam green now, a lot of black and a lot of white and a lot of gray. But there was something about the blue and gold. There was something about the blue and gold that really resonated with me. My high school colors were blue and gold, but becoming part of the Canisius community was really just ultimately what felt right comparatively to the other schools that I had visited.
The blue and gold, it's just a special color combo. It just pops, it looks good. And then the Canisius gold and Griffins, like, it doesn't get better than that. Come on. So
doesn't get better than that, Griffin.
Exactly, right? So during your 4 years, you were a part of the teams that transcended the women's basketball program into a very important spot, and also for the first time really in the program's history, getting to the semifinals in your senior year. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of your teammates throughout those times?
I do, mainly on Facebook. It's easy to keep tabs on, where people are and what they're doing. Primarily, though, I have the closest relationship that still exists is obviously with the women that I lived with. Jess Butler and I are still super close. Jill, then Knappich, now McConnell. And I talk just every week. And Janelle Stevens, another standout from, Canisius brass. We're still really, really cool, really, really close. And obviously, we're both in the New York City area. So my roommates, sisters for life. I still absolutely keep in contact with Shauna. We're in this basketball ecosystem, and still, but here and there, all of the teammates, on birthdays, on Christmas, we're still friendly. We're still in contact. We don't get together nearly as much as I think we'd like to, but definitely a family and a sisterhood that was established almost 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, which sounds nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy. Here's a stat for you. I don't know if you still know this, but your final game of your junior year, that overtime loss against Fairfield, that's still the highest scoring women's game in MAC history.
Wow.
Which is kind of interesting, right? I had to go back in the record books because I saw that. It kind of popped off 96, 92 in my head. And then I look back, it still is the highest. So,
well, let's say that I was playing defense. Well, I was playing defense, so I'm sure you pulled how many points I had. I don't remember, but absolutely, I had some scores. We played with some great scorers, and I mentioned Shauna, I mentioned Janelle. We had some really, really, really passionate players on those teams.
Yeah, you played 114 games in your college career, which, first off, that's remarkable. That's a lot of games. But over those two times, you talk about two of the teammates that I was going to mention in, Shauna Green and also Janelle Stevens. Guys have went on and had very remarkable careers in your own right. Coach Green now at Illinois after a time at Dayton, and then Janelle being in the Black Panther series. Like, when you guys were in school, did you have these aspirations, or like, how did that all come about?
Well, Griffin, you have to remember, this is prolific internet days. There's no TikTok, right. There's no YouTube, there's no social media, right? So our dreams, our hopes, our aspirations really were steeped in sort of what our majors were at the time. Shauna and I were both marketing majors. I think we probably both saw ourselves in corporate America. We never really talked a ton about it. Janelle likewise was a business major. She had a really short stint in the PR firm world and quickly pivoted. So I think, to answer your question directly, the short of it is, we weren't really aspiring or having these types of conversations. I think we all thought we would fall into place into what our majors were. But shortly after graduating, and at the time, I was really closely in contact with Shauna. We'd attended Final Four together for several years right after we both graduated, and she was intensely focused on becoming a coach. So it's really, really awesome to see her not only fulfill that dream, but just do it at a really, really high level and, become coach of the year and have those really successful seasons at Dayton. And I'm really excited to see, what she's going to do in this Illinois era. And Janelle, I mean, no one could have seen that career coming. I don't even know if Janelle saw the career that she has coming as a stunt double, as a one of the most sought after, women in Hollywood in terms of doing the work that she does. So super happy for her, super proud of everything she's accomplished. But that's a new niche. It's uncharted territory, I think, as far as that career is concerned. And we're just super proud of her.
Most certainly. And it's very cool, too, to see the Canisius women's basketball program churn out this talent. You know, you have people like yourself and then two of the top 4 scorers of all time in program history doing great things. So it's awesome. And we're all very proud of you. But right after you graduated from Canisius with your marketing degree, like you mentioned, then you went on to NYU to then get your sports marketing degree. So what went into your decision making with going back to school and then getting your master's?
Yeah, I always saw myself really working straight up in a marketing role. I thought I'd work for an insurance company, being from Connecticut, where Hartford is the insurance capital of the world, or at least it was way back when. But my first position, my first job that I landed right after undergraduate was at the Basketball Hall of Fame. So although it is a museum, it was a sports museum. And really, I just got this incredible curiosity around what, sports business really looked like. And just in a twist of fate, my best friend from high school had been studying in a nursing program at NYU, and she came to visit. She came to visit me in Springfield. And she tosses a postcard at me, and she said, "Hey, NYU has a sports management program. You should look into it." And I'm going to be completely honest with you. All I saw was, I'm going to have an opportunity to live in New York City for 2 years. I'll get a master's. I'll pick up, more insight and more, sort of education around how to apply what I had already learned in business as an undergraduate student, but also what I learned in that 1 year at the Basketball Hall of Fame, and see if I can make something work. But, about 2 months into that job at the Hall of Fame, and then about 10 months after when I left, it was pretty evident to me that, I felt like I belonged working in some sort of sports, career. I wasn't certain at the time whether it be collegiate. I wasn't sure whether it would be professional. I wasn't sure if it'd be at a brand that was, adjacent to sports. But I went to NYU seeking out, what that would become. My focus was actually to become a sports agent for a little bit. When I took the GMAT, that was what I was determined to do. And a really funny story for you to connect it back to Canisius, Jessica Butler, who was also my teammate and roommate over all 4 years. First person I met pretty much at school. She had been playing professional basketball after we finished. So Jess was playing in Puerto Rico. She played in Macedonia. She played in a handful of countries. And I said, well, I'm going back to school. I think I'm going to become a sports agent. And she said, well, why don't you do my contract for me? You can figure out my next contract, and, you can sort of dip your toe in the water and see if this is something that you really want to make a career of. So just, that I can't say enough about that bond, and just, the teammate, this notion of lifetime teammates, lifetime sisters, like it still exists to this day. But it really started with Jess saying, do you want to be an agent? I did that. I did her contract, and I was like, I don't want to do this for a living. It was tough. And she played for a really long time, but I discovered at that moment that I'd probably more so focus on a marketing pathway within the sports field.
So that, again, goes right into my next question. You spent now 14 years in the Liberty organization, but you first started in a marketing type role. So how did that opportunity come about for you to then jump to the WNBA?
Yeah, so that same coach that I mentioned, Michelle Collins, who recruited me to play at Canisius, she had played with a woman who was just completely crushing it, like hugely rising star. I shouldn't even say star, rising star. She was an executive at the WNBA, and Michelle introduced me. I had written my thesis, my final paper at NYU on the WNBA, because I had never been to a game. So in this meeting, in this really short meeting where I was supposed to be presenting a thesis, I was learning about the WNBA, and she invited me to a game, and as they say, the rest is history. She hired me about 4 or 5 months later. I spent almost 5 years at the league office, really just learning the intricacies of the revenue side of the business, the marketing side of the business, and on revenue, both ticketing and sponsorship. and ultimately crossed over to the team side. And this was all in the vein of marketing. What I learned pretty quickly is marketing means many things. And as you probably can't even imagine, marketing means something in 2022 that it didn't mean in 2003 when you talk about social media and digital media and, the way technology has just completely changed the game. So that was my focus. It was my educational background. But ultimately, I had done so many operational tasks over the years. As my responsibility began to grow, as the team had shifted and sort of grown and reinvented itself through a series of moves and a series of relocations, it became pretty obvious internally to the people who were managing me that my stronger suit was probably operational. It was more about people and structure and planning and execution, more so than creativity and innovation that's really required on the marketing side. So that pivot occurred within the last 6 or 7 years, but I think it was always in me.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that your time in the league office almost made things a little bit easier to then transition into a team role in the marketing side of things and then kind of growing from that point on?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a purview across all of the WNBA teams, but the department that I worked in when I was at the league level actually was an in-house service to all the NBA teams, all of the WNBA teams, and all of the G League teams. So it was such an expansive exposure to just different ways that businesses operate, how different markets really have their own nuances and different ways of creating success. So I think the transition to a team felt more focused and more singular and, super, super hyper local. So it was actually really a lot of fun to be able to get my hands dirty, but also stay in one market.
Yeah. And when you then got to the Liberty, we've seen this steady growth throughout the marketing department and now into your current role. But in each one of those different positions that you've had, in what ways did those help you kind of grow into the person that you are now?
Yeah. I'm always up for a new challenge. And I think that's the reason why, really the longevity of my time with this team, or even when you look at it, combine the league and the team side, almost 18, 19 years, in one ecosystem is a really long time. People don't do that a ton these days, but I credit it only to the fact that I was able to really stretch beyond my own imagination. This never becomes mundane for me because there's always been a new challenge, either in responsibility or a new challenge in the team was sold to new ownership or the team moved. We've played in 4 arenas since I've been with this particular franchise. So instead of looking at those as speed bumps or challenges, as you use the term, they were growth opportunities. They were ways to take transferable skills, but really just take a step forward instead of standing in the same place. So, while it feels easy to say now, looking back in hindsight, but I look at it as a journey, and one that, I've sort of embraced, because at the end of the day, it's the basketball that I'm tied to. It's not, the what I'm doing within these 4 walls. It's what happens on the court and the elevation of the women in this league, and really wanting the team to be successful. That remains sort of the North Star. So what I'm doing, as long as it's a means to an end, doesn't really matter.
And you most certainly have helped that on the court product. Prior to your current position as CEO, you were the chief operating officer, and 2 of the bigger projects that you helped spearhead were, one, getting the team to play in the Barclays Center. You mentioned how the team has now played at 4 different locations since you've been there, as well as getting a huge TV deal on YES Network to televise all of your guys' home games. So can you just describe how big of a deal that is? Because I think not as many people realize, as the league continues to grow, so much of it is in the broadcasting deals and just to continue to develop the product?
Yeah, especially in a league such as ours that's, entering its 27th season, in as much as we're consuming media on our phones and tablets and in short form, live sports is still the thing that people want to watch in linear format. You don't want to know the score. You don't want to know the outcome. You want to watch the game on television if you're not going to attend the game. And that deal with Yes really represented a first for this regional network. And Yes is an incredible partner, but they were so positive in their embracing of women's sports and really highlighting and elevating that for the very first time, WNBA basketball would be on their network, that it'd be serving this area of the country with so many people and, really traditionally a baseball network that also carries, the Nets were already on the Yes network. They had soccer, on their network. So I think to add women to the repertoire, it really just raised the stakes of the portfolio. And, I can't say enough about just how great it was to go from being on one powerhouse network in MSG to being on another on Yes Network and really not having any lapse. There were no drop balls in that transition. And just like a flawless sort of, bringing Liberty basketball, as it were, whether it was at Westchester County Center, which was our 2-year temporary arena, and now at the Barclays Center, like it's just, entertainment at its highest level. And I'm so proud that we can bring it to not just the people who show up in the arena, but the people in the tri-state area. So, it's really all about conversations, and having been on another regional network in the area for a really long time, like we knew we had a great product. We know we have a great product. It was just about getting to, the point where we had a mutually beneficial deal. And I'm so happy that we're there and we continue to be there.
And it's crazy how your impact in that scenario and getting the TV deal has resonated with me here in Buffalo, because that's honestly how I first started watching WNBA games. We get Yes Network because of the Yankees here in Buffalo. That was kind of like my first taste with the team. So, that just goes to show right there how you specifically have helped, grow Liberty basketball and also just the WNBA in general. So that's really, really cool. But in July 2020, you officially are announced as the Liberty's first ever CEO of the franchise, as well as the first Black CEO in all of the WNBA. When I say those words to you, has it truly sunk in how big of an accomplishment that is?
Yeah, it's been a couple years now, and when you think back to where we were in July of 2020 to where we are right now, like a lot has happened, in terms of the world and the pandemic and society and, division, really, I think in the American society. And it absolutely is humbling to think that firsts are still happening, but I have to be completely inspired that there's some 10-year-old little girl who's hooping and who wants to play college basketball and is working on her game every day. And maybe she comes across a story where there's somebody else who has that same exact story as her, who then went on and actually wasn't skilled enough to play in the league, but went to the league in another way. So, it's really about, can I inspire just one person through this process? Absolutely. That's humbling, though. I think at the end of the day, though, I can't wait until there's a day where it's normalized, where there aren't any more firsts, and it's just, best, most skilled person for the job, which I think that I was at the time, having paid dues with the team, but definitely significant, definitely symbolic, but something that we have to continue to work on each and every day.
Another first that is now having its 50-year anniversary is Title IX. And I want to read a quote that you've said in the past. And well, we're starting to see some very strong, very smart women in leadership roles within the sports industry. And I hope young women feel that they can achieve in the same role that I currently have, because they're seeing it done now. Obviously, representation is important for you on multiple levels. So with all that being said, how big is Title IX to you, and what does this milestone mean?
Yeah, I think it's an incredible feat that there has been change and audible change for 50 years. I've actually had the privilege to be in Billie Jean King's presence, and what she laid a foundation for, to see what that's become in terms of the number of women who play sports, the number of leagues at the professional level, the number of executives and coaches and, you know what I mean, GMs and the whole gamut. Like, all of that is progress. At the same time, we still have a long ways to go to achieve complete equity. So I feel like I'm a part of the movement. The celebration of 50 years of Title IX just inspires me for 50 more. You know what I mean? I think I'm just young enough that hopefully when I'm super old and gray, I'm already gray, but super old and gray, we'll be sitting back and talking about the days when we fought and we won and we had achieved ultimate equality, or even surpassed in some instances what our male counterparts are able to do in terms of business, in terms of just varying equity measures. I know because I'm a CEO, I'm always focused on the revenue, like, selling out buildings every night, but it's mind blowing to see some of the things that are happening right now. It's just getting to that consistent level where it's happening for everyone, and we're not second guessing anything or anyone's motives, when it's really just about, like, these women are the best at what they do in their respective, and you can fill in the blank, their respective role, their respective team, their respective educational pursuit. At the end of the day, Title IX has affected sports in a really meaningful way, but it really is about equity and education. And I think we can't lose sight of that either. Just as you look at the statistics where, less girls are playing sports, or having less opportunities to play sports. I think, we have to sort of, get in reverse on that one and take another path to make sure that we don't lose sight of, the ultimate goal. That's really what I'm focused on. And whatever way we can do that through the Liberty and through the WNBA, I'm a part of that movement. I want to be a part of that movement. I'll continue to be a part of that movement.
Yeah, it's been really cool for me, specifically just trying to do more research on Title IX and to learn more about the upbringing of it. And just to see, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And just in terms of equity, in terms of just trying to get an education and then go from there with athletics, it's really cool to see, again, over 50 years, pretty good sample size where we can now go maybe in 100 years from now. So shifting more into the current status of the Liberty, 2 months before you got your current position, there was another huge addition to the Liberty, and that is Sabrina Ionescu, generational type talent. What does she mean for your guys' franchise? Not where you're just currently at, but just to have a type of player in your organization like her.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the timing, Griffin, because that was the most important draft in franchise history. It was the first time we had a number one pick. And if you're going to have a first time to have a number one pick, you wanted it to be 2020. Unfortunately, to a certain extent, that season was played in the bubble. So we had a delayed gratification in introducing Sabrina to the New York market. But as to use your words, a generational talent, just a class act on and off the court, one of the hardest workers I've ever seen in my life. And I don't even have to talk about marketability. You know what I mean? Like, brands want to be associated with her. We are fortunate to have her as the lead on our team, but it changes everything when you have, a superstar, but also someone who's just so committed to winning, which is ultimately what we need to do. I don't like to talk about it a lot, but we're an original franchise that has never won that championship. It's still eluding us, and you have a sweeter sense. You wake up a little bit more vibrant every day when you know that you have a talent like Sabrina on your team. And then working with our general manager, Jonathan Kolb, who's just really, really turned the on-court product around for us. We had some of our worst days, And, we've really, really kicked it up into, up 10 gears at this point. So that makes my job easier. It makes my job more fruitful when, we're marketing such an amazing product. And I'll even take it a step further. I think the talent in this entire league has been elevated, so you go out and you have a generational talent like Sabrina, and she's got to work hard for every single point she scores. She's got to work hard for every single pass that she's dishing out, every single assist, every single rebound. Like, you could see it. She's all grit, and she's everything that we would want someone from New York, someone who's representing New York, right, to be. So just super, super, super excited. She's young. Like I said, she's vibrant. And it's really just about building around her, and ultimately getting like the entire, squad on the same page so that we fill up that win column.
And since having the first overall pick 2 years ago, you've now made 2 straight postseason appearances. Again, another step in the right direction. What is the overall feeling in the organization with where you guys are currently at?
Yeah, we feel great. There is a tailwind that's really guiding, I think, all of women's sports right now. When you look at what's happening in women's soccer, when you look at the individual sports, the rising stars in tennis and golf, and you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it feels good, and we just bask in that because now we're a playoff team. You wanna be hot when things are hot. We're in our home arena. We can really let our hair down now that we've settled as Barclays Center as our home, and really just start to engage and be familiar with our fan base again, and really just have this rallying cry around this team that really, puts them over the edge. So all around good feelings. We're the sister team of the Brooklyn Nets, and you could even feel it permeate on the Nets side, and the support that we get from, the men on that team who show up, and the game recognizes game. They show up and they'll sit courtside, and they're dapping up Sabrina and everything like that. And it's just like it's a new day. I'm so proud to be a part of it, and like I said, we just have to get it done.
Yeah, and I just think across the league right now too, it's just a very exciting time. You're seeing now the WNBA included in games like NBA 2K and even like primetime ESPN games throughout the playoff coverage this year. So for you specifically with the Liberty, what are you guys trying to do to, again, tap into a different audience that maybe wasn't watching the WNBA before?
Yeah, it's sort of twofold for us. I've mentioned a few times, we're still fairly new to Brooklyn. So although the team's been around for 26 years, our home was in Manhattan for a really long time, for 20 plus years. And then we were outside of the city. I don't know how familiar you are, but Westchester is about a 45-minute drive. It completely shifted the paradigm of the fan base, because we were just far enough to really, really piss people off who were diehard fans. And then, we're all of a sudden now back in the boroughs. We're in the heart of Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is, the center point of culture. It's where all the cool kids live now. I think overall New York is cool, and I'm not a New Yorker, so I feel totally comfortable saying that. But to be in Brooklyn, it's twofold. We're re-engaging a lapsed fan base, at the same time introducing ourselves to someone, as you say, who may not know that this game is for them, this product is for them, this community is for them. So meeting people where they are is really what we're keenly focused on. And if that means we get you to just buy one single game, you're not a full-blown season ticket holder. Maybe you came because there was an art exhibit at halftime, or maybe you came to see the national anthem because your kids' choir was singing it at the Barclays Center. Maybe you joined up because you saw the story of our Xbox court. We did a custom court this year in collaboration with Xbox and Roblox. And it's really like, maybe these are people who never thought about taking in a Liberty game, but now we've all of a sudden had this cross section or this alignment with something else that interests you. And then I have you hooked. Because once you see Ellie, the mascot, dance, or you see those players run out and, Sabrina's had a triple double, Benijah Laney backs you down, automatic bucket every single time, like, then I have you. So really it's just the introduction. How do we test? How do we experiment? How do we meet people where they are, though, just to reiterate what I said earlier. But yeah, it's really about, using all of the resources within our power, technology, digital media, innovation being the lowest hanging fruit. But that's really where we're focused right now, just sort of in tandem. How do we re-engage? And then how do we grab people who may not know that this is a beautiful game and it's an inspirational game, and the women in this league deserve this platform.
Yeah, I bet that has to be a lot of your conversations right now in the off season, which you're currently in, are those types of conversations you're having. But I know you're super busy all year round. And now that we're in the conference season, or the non-conference slate, I should say, for Canisius women's basketball and across the country, have you had a chance to follow the Griffs at all, or no?
So I'm following the scores. Honesty is the best policy. I haven't watched a game yet, but I promise that I will. And I absolutely have to get my 2 little ones up to campus. So there will be a Keia Clarke and family in tow outing at Kessler sometime soon.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward for that to happening. I know that they were very big. They had a watch party as well when you guys were in the playoffs too. They all had Liberty gear. And I know for sure after this interview's over, you got me hooked now too. I'm fully on the Liberty, no doubt in my mind. So again, Keia, thank you so much for talking with me today. It was great to have you on and hear more about your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Go Griffs, and thank you, Griffin.
Yeah, absolutely.